Live.
So here we are again for the Dark Horse Podcast. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us.
We have a guest with us today, Coach Eric Coe, the Cobra. Highly experienced competitor, been a brown belt for a long time. How long have you been a brown belt?
It's coming up on 3 years.
Teacher.
2017.
He's been teaching kids and adults for a long time. Started jiu-jitsu at 17 at Dark Horse.
Yep. Back in the day.
Cool.
Got the ponytail. The whole...
The long hair. You and Kiefer with the long hair. You were the long hairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
For sure.
Way back.
So greetings. Welcome. Where should we start off?
Let's start at the beginning, right? So, Coach, tell us about the beginning. Why were you interested in jiu-jitsu? What made you walk in the school in the first place?
Yeah, I think like every young man, well, like many young men that watch the UFC, I thought this is a natural career path for me. I would love to go do that.
I want to do that and make money.
That looks more fun than, real jobs. Yeah, so me and my friend at the time, we were like, hey man, we should really start doing like jiu-jitsu and MMA and stuff. So we go to Dark Horse, and I think I was doing probably about as many Muay Thai classes as jiu-jitsu for about 2 months. And then we decided to do that jiu-jitsu competition. I remember there was one because we started in about June, and then there was the fight to win in the middle of August. And the funny thing was, it was my birthday is the 17th, and that tournament's always like the same weekend. So my birthday is usually that Thursday or Friday, and that tournament's always that weekend. Yeah. So I turn 18 and do the adult division at that tournament. Yeah. And I
that was your hip bump sweep?
That was one of the second ones I did. The first one, I won Nogi in that one as well. But the first one, I just got one. I won that. And yeah, it was kind of weird because I wasn't really one of those kids that was good at stuff, like naturally, okay. Any kind of sports or anything. So so I just kind of stuck with jiu-jitsu, and obviously I'm still interested in MMA and
you get some recognition right off the bat. So, that's huge.
So I kind of just stuck with jiu-jitsu, and here we are. So, 10 years later, almost. So
just you and a buddy and decided, all right, this is it. Why? So why?
You and Kiefer Johnson, right?
Kiefer, yes. No nickname, but I guess his nickname is his name.
Had nicknames, pretty sure.
Yeah.
I can't remember any of them. But
they never really stuck. But yeah, and I think that was good because we kind of, we started the same day, obviously, and then I think we kind of just both stuck around after class, and we're like, dude, you want to roll? And then we were just training with each other. One funny anecdote: we eventually just came to the point after a couple months of training that we both just mutually agreed to stop doing the forearm to the throat from inside close guard. Like we were both just like, dude, can we just stop doing that to each other? we were both like, all right, cool, dude, let's just stop, because it would literally be like one of us would get on top and then just do that to the person for like minutes at a time, and then somebody would finally sweep or finally pass or whatever, and then it would be the other person's turn. It was not good. Like things weren't getting done, so we finally were just like, okay, let's stop that. But
mutually agreed to stop slowing down your jiu-jitsu growth.
Yeah, smashing form of the face. But yeah, so I think it was good to have that buddy, and to have that person to drill with or just train with, and we would obviously train super hard. And I guess it was kind of weird because like it was a kind of a different relationship than me and Kiefer had with a lot of other things, because we had started at the same time. He was like just more athletic than me naturally, I feel like. So like I would always try to compete with him in sports and stuff like that, but it wasn't really happening. There was finally this thing. I was like, okay, we're a little more even playing field now. So that was fun to
digging into the rivalry. You had the edge on him for a long time. The baseball bat choke. And that stuff.
I've definitely noticed when he's had to take breaks with injuries or work or travel or whatever, and I'm like, oh man, you're gonna take another 6 months off? I mean, that's okay. I'm not too upset about it, but so there's that for sure.
I mean, if you really want to speak Swedish that badly,
speaking Swedish, drilling some more arm bars. It's like there's pros and cons there.
Yeah. You always pay for your education. It's just a matter of what form that takes.
Yeah.
So
which education you choose.
Yeah, that's a big one. So you come in pretty early. You said just a couple months after you started, and you having some competition success. Do you think that that kind of started a trend? Did that continue on? Were you fairly competition focused after that, or did that take some time to build up and get to the point where you were kind of keeping in competition mode?
Yeah, I think it made it pretty natural to just fall into that like structure. Because I think a lot, like, especially for a lot of people, if you start later in life, whatever, like you have to kind of fit jiu-jitsu into your life. And at that point in my life, like, let me think. So I was just at the end of high school, and then I was like, I guess I'm going to college next. You know, that's what you're raised thinking, and like
college or get a real job.
Yeah, that was the next thing. And I was like, I had a lot of extra time, and was just training a lot, and yeah, it just kind of gave like a lot of structure. And then I only made it another year of college after that, so I think it provided the structure I needed more so than trying to make myself go to this school and pay a bunch of money and sit in this classroom and everything. So I think that definitely was a big factor in how much it became a part of my life. It's just the timing and everything, so definitely a factor.
And then did you think, okay, well, I'm going to be a teacher. I'm going to teach kids class as my jiu-jitsu thing? Or are you thinking, no, I'm going to stand up there on the podium as my jiu-jitsu thing? Or did you think, like, I'm going to be some crusty old guy teaching up the next generation as your next thing? Like, where did your passions lie?
Yeah, funny enough, around the time that my mom stopped paying my tuition, I of course then had a harder time affording jiu-jitsu, and it was kind of one of those situations where like you guys would talk to me and be like, all right, so we're gonna run your card and like this is gonna clear, right? And I'm like, yep, and then sometimes it wouldn't. So I think eventually, I don't know if it was you or right, but you guys were like, hey, maybe like help out with kids classes, and then that's kind of I think how it folds.
There's another path here
for a lot of people, and then. Yeah, and then I guess I noticed just an opportunity there, like with you specifically, like the way that we would structure the kids' classes, there would kind of be a sheet, and then you'd fill in your initials for a duty, and the sheet would be blank. And then, of course, there was things that like it'd be hard to do right away, like the speech was kind of the big one. But stuff like the warm up, I would fill in, and then eventually I could just fill in the whole sheet, and then just run the whole class. So that was a pretty easy way to kind of take that initiative and continue to grow that. So it was a really good experience. I can't say I could see myself teaching kids classes as much as I was, like for an extended period of time.
It's intense.
It's
psychologically, emotionally demanding.
Yeah, very draining.
Draining also. Yeah.
Yeah. I think
it's very fulfilling.
When it goes great, it's great.
Yeah.
Like it's so like when you see them. You see the kid that comes in and has the behavior issues.
Yeah, or they're just like super shy and in their shell, and then like a year later they're like super outgoing and happy, and they're getting good grades at school or whatever it is. They fix that behavioral issue.
Yeah,
that's always awesome to see.
I think what it came down to me is like you try to have that mindset where everything you do is a reflection of yourself, but like there's always, and maybe not always, but there's usually that one kid that's just like you can't really, you got to mitigate it as much as possible.
One kid
yeah,
can ruin the whole thing.
And then
for sure.
And you just can't do anything about it. So you just have to, you're like, man, this isn't going to be a great class. Like you just kind of have to, all right, well, and like those are probably the most taxing days, like all right, this kid's just gonna scream randomly and I just can't really do too much about it. I mean, it's kick them out, or like it's like, so yeah, kids classes were a good experience. I mean, it's a good skill to have, but
teach you some emotional control.
Yeah, emotional control,
some mental toughness in a different way.
Yeah, that's kind of what I tell people is to maybe start instructing with kids, because I feel like it's easier to see yourself in that leadership role, maybe versus if you're with adults. And then it is just harder to keep their attention. It's more simple. It's just like an energy flow of like, okay, we just got to keep moving, So I think it can be good to start with kids.
Yeah, I feel like teaching kids, you learn a lot about teaching. You learn way less about the subject matter that you're going over, but you learn so
Teaching
much.
techniques, teaching methodologies.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
right. Like classroom management,
Yeah.
attention management.
Yeah.
How to present material so that it's like digestible and keeping things short. Like
The importance of actually maintaining control of the room. Not letting it get away from you.
The techniques themselves, not so much, but everything else, 100%.
Although a lot of things, like technique-wise, that I picked up teaching kids class early on, I still use because it's a great way to communicate things in a really, really simple manner. Right? It's like, okay, I'm gonna, and I think it's one that you do really well, Professor, is breaking it down into like 3-4 words, single words that just hook the attention, that keep things ordered.
You gotta do it.
Yeah, and
you have
it's an absolute must for kids, but it's a skill that translates over, is super helpful for any learner. And like, oh, great, here's my bullet points, bang, bang, bang. Yes, I think starting in teaching
teaches you how to think about jiu-jitsu in those chunks, which is actually pretty good for your jiu-jitsu because you can express more complex ideas in simpler ways.
Yeah, well, and jiu-jitsu is an under stress task, right? And so anything you're doing under stress, you want gross motor movements. You want like big chunks of stuff, not the example I always use is the 5-point palm exploding heart technique, right? Like, no, there's too many pieces to pull off in a high stress situation, right? Your 4 chunks, your bullet points, are all gross motor movements that you can still remember, you can still pull off while adrenalized.
Yeah.
Makes sense. Yeah, I can definitely see that.
Yeah. Right. Like, all right, you're adrenalized. Maybe it's not the time to play worm guard. Call me crazy.
They might be wearing a bathrobe, though. I feel like if they were, that would be...
Right? Or like a duster.
Really, any kind of trench coat, yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
Really get it going there.
Oh my gosh.
You never know.
We are in the West.
My counter mugging fantasies just leveled up.
Well, really, it would wrap up their legs too, like maybe, especially if you like fed it between their legs, kind of bunched it up. And
oh my gosh, and we got both sides too, right? You got like the long hanging trench coat pieces on both sides. Oh my goodness, yeah,
this really control their posture.
Next level.
2 worm guard nerds.
Yeah, worm guard and head movement. That's all you need for self-defense, I think. Hand off the grip. You know,
sure.
Yeah, palm down, and if I turn away, maybe. We'll throw some gloves on later. We'll see.
Yeah.
I'm so into it.
It's a mystery.
Yeah.
So, kids classes.
All right. So, after teaching kids, coming up in the school a little bit, you started to hit those like more elite levels. Started competing in some bigger competitions. What's the first like really big competition that stands out in your mind?
Well, the first one, and my best result at a major so far, actually, 2013. I did PANS. It was pretty cool. It was like a structured training camp that they had done in Dark Horse. There was a group of probably like 7 or 8 of us that went out there. Yeah, it was fun. I mean, this was my first IBJJF, which I feel like I probably kind of competed better than I have a lot of other times, just approaching it with that kind of beginner's mindset and just kind of seeing what happens and all that type of stuff. Yeah, I got 3rd at lightweight. There's 4 matches that I won, and then I lost in the semifinals, actually to Dante Leon, who was kind of a good guy now.
Yeah, he does some jiu-jitsu.
He does some jiu-jitsu. So I went against him back in the day. That was pretty cool. I got an offhand compliment from Shanji, actually. So Dante was training in Michigan with Shanji at the time, I think. And then I talked to Shanji afterwards because I took my medal, and then I got it, the band, I got it signed by a bunch of guys there, like Boucher, a bunch of those guys there. So that was super cool. So I'm getting it signed by Shanji, and I think he had said something like, oh, that's why we like train Dante so hard to beat badasses like you or something. And like he said it kind of offhand, but like he called me badass. So I was like, all right, cool. I'm trying to kind of think I'm badass. So this was actually, I mean, there's a really good story about being a guy that didn't want to roll with Shanji. So I'll have to save that one for later. But that was also that same trip. But yeah, so that was the first one back in 2013. And yeah, I've done pans and worlds pretty regularly since then. Haven't had as good of a result, but kind of same thing as that first one. Is kind of just a good eye-opening experience. Like, okay, like, you know, I'm capable of doing this, you know, at a high level. So
Was this the baseball bat choke period, or was this
yeah, this was deep into the
inverted triangle?
the baseball bat triangle. I think I got like 2 baseball bat chokes there. So like my best move, I don't even want to say my best move, but my best like technique was the baseball bat choke. A lot of times I do it from half guard and then turn away, or sometimes I'd even just from bottom of side control, or this little play between like the getting a near side elbow from knee to elbow from side control, and then throwing the leg over the head and doing that arm bar, but expecting them to pull their arm out and then like going for the triangle there. So like two of my better techniques were from like bottom of side control basically.
Well,
so
That's awesome.
While we're here, I gotta tell the story of you competing in a local tournament. It was the Fight to Win, and I tried to coach you through like fundamental jiu-jitsu pieces, but they just weren't gonna happen.
Nah.
So I stopped and I started to coach you with the things that you were doing.
Oh yeah.
So you pulled guard, and I was like, okay, let him pass. And the other coach stops coaching, looks at me, and then by the time he looks back at his competitor was tapping the baseball bat choke. And I was like, that's it, get it. And then he like looked at me again like, what the hell just happened?
You should have.
But I wasn't going to, coach you to sweep if you're not going to sweep.
Nah, that was not going to happen. No.
So let him pass. That's it. Let him pass. And the coach is like, wait, what?
Yeah. There's some good ones. Actually, one of my, I guess, more vivid jiu-jitsu memories. This was actually, I used to smoke weed before I could compete. You know, you'd smoke weed before training. You'd do it before the competition, naturally, back in the day when you take things, less seriously. So it was the finals. I get the guy in the baseball bat choke, and I kind of roll him over all the way to where like we're against the mat, and I'm like staring into his eyes to where his eyes are like right here, and I see his eyes dilate, and apparently that's what happens when you go unconscious. So I'm like staring at him like really close, and I see his eyes dilate, and then he starts like snorting and like kind of but it goes from like just such intense moment of okay, he's unconscious, okay, and I can just kind of like roll him off of me. And it was the finals, and I think I had gotten the same baseball bat choke on his buddy the match before in like the semis. So
if you don't know how to deal with it, you're in deep trouble.
It was great. It was in the finals, put him to sleep. I was like, and I can still like see that like in my mind's eye of just his eyes just like dilating. I was like, whoa, it was really weird.
Something
really weird
clearly
experience.
happened
there.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
you guys shared a moment together. Is that what you're saying?
Well, he wasn't there. So it was more.
He was.
It was a private moment.
But then he went away.
Yeah. So that was actually. I guess that brings up another story. Not to humble brag too much, but my first competition, that very first one after the couple months, when you first start doing jiu-jitsu, like people kind of treat it a lot like wrestling, especially like girls. They kind of make fun of you. They think it looks lame, yada yada. So I like pull close guard, and I'm kind of just working my legs up this guy's side, and he pulls his arm out and kind of puts himself in a triangle, and I get him in the triangle, and he doesn't tap, and he goes out. And then having that video like 2 to 3 months into training, which was very valuable to have. Like my skinny, like ponytail having ass, just like goes out there, pulls the guy into close guard. And if I show this to my friends, they're already making fun of me. They're like, what is this? And then like while they're still talking smack, he like pulls his arm out and then like put the triangle on and like he goes out and then they're like, oh wait, he's unconscious.
He's no longer conscious.
Yeah, see. So
yeah. When was the last time you guys choked somebody unconscious?
Yeah, exactly.
Shut up.
That was probably along with doing well in that tournament. That was definitely an eye-opening experience. I was like, okay, wow. Yeah. That was probably my favorite thing about competing. Now I can specifically remember because like we had trained in the gym and they're always like, take care of your partner, blah blah blah. And then like I was like, wait, I don't have to do that as much now that I'm competing. Like I got him in the triangle and I was like, I can just like, I'm going to keep going until he taps. I was like, this is
or not.
This is fun or not. Yeah. Yeah, so that was a fun experience.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about competition in general is the kind of self-validation. It doesn't have to be, it doesn't even have to be a victory, right? But just saying like, okay, here I am on whatever date it is on December 5th. I am this good, right? Like against a real deal, resisting opponent, I am this good. All that work I did, it's real. It paid off. Here it is. Maybe I still need to do a lot more, but I think tournaments are a great opportunity to prove to yourself how far you've come.
Yeah, I think even a loss is a huge victory certainly for a lot of people, right? And it should be for most anyone. You went out there, you did the thing. Even putting yourself through the process, like putting yourself out there, like you learn a lot about yourself and how you deal with pressure, how you fought through it well, or you didn't fight through it as well as you could have, but you did it, right? And if any techniques worked while you were out there, then that's something you can put in your little bag. That technique works with a opponent that's resisting as hard as they possibly can. That's awesome. I got that thing. And the things that didn't work or how you got beat, like those are shortcomings that you can learn from.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's something to be said for, and especially the older people that, like I said, I think it's how much they can get out of jiu-jitsu is really how good jiu-jitsu is for them. You know what I mean? Like the guy that, like, yeah, maybe he'll get in a bar fight one more time in his life, but like really he's not going to need jiu-jitsu, but it's a tool for him to just, kind of empower his life. Like
that's why most guys certainly get into jiu-jitsu is they want to learn how to fight. Whether they'll admit it or not doesn't really matter, right?
Yeah.
And they get into jiu-jitsu and then over time they realize that there's a whole other bunch of benefits. At this point, like I don't train jiu-jitsu to learn how to fight anymore.
Yeah, exactly. That's kind of how I describe a lot of sport jiu-jitsu now. But to that point, the benefits that person is receiving.
Would you
a little warm up.
freshen me up there, cowboy?
Just imposing that discipline on yourself and making the weight and I think it's pretty big for people.
Well, and I think people in general are bad at self-discipline, right? Like,
yeah,
because
so bad.
You're the only person to keep you accountable, so you can make those easy excuses. Whereas,
however, if your buddy
right.
is going to choke you unconscious because you haven't been training,
yeah,
you want to keep training.
Or even just, like, having a boss keeps you on track at work. Having a structured thing that you like to do can just add total value to your life.
Yeah.
Whether you're competing or not, or you're gonna.
I've seen the good effects of peer pressure in jiu-jitsu all the time. Like Cobra and Kiefer, or like other groups of friends, like they'll be like, "Well, I'm coming to class tomorrow. Are you coming?" And they'll hold each other accountable or whatever. And it's just kind of a natural part. Like you don't have to talk about it, but maximizing it's good. But just holding each other accountable so they keep showing up.
Yeah, I had to admit to myself how much. And this is more for like the lifting gym, but like how much like subconsciously flexing on people is part of my motivation to go to the gym. Where like working out at home, like it's not the same. Like you put on the clothes, but like going to the gym and like being there, busting out a set of 12 pull-ups and like knowing that I look strong and everything. Like I had to realize how much of a motivation that was for me when I wasn't able to go to the gym.
Or now there's no one at the gym.
Yeah, and I still got the workouts in and everything, but just realizing like, man, like this is not as much fun as like being at the gym, seeing my buddies, using the equipment there, like more than just the social atmosphere, but even more specifically that validation of like busting out my set at 315 on deadlift and like, man, I look cool. Yes, this is good. I had to realize that about myself, so it was interesting.
Yeah, I think a little bit of vanity is not necessarily a bad thing. In fact, this podcast often stokes up my vanity. I'll put on replays on the TV. Oh my gosh, I cannot stop looking at myself.
I'm afraid to ask.
I'm like a parakeet. I just cannot stop staring at my own reflection. It's terrible.
God. Yeah. I don't think anybody likes the sound of their own voice. Like,
oh my God, no, I love it. I absolutely love it.
I found one.
Dude, here's hoping that cloning is not invented in my lifetime.
I'm oddly neutral. I feel uncomfortable thinking about watching myself. And I'm like, I'm going to sound weird or look weird or whatever, sound stupid. And I watch it, I'm like, oh, yeah, that's me. Oh, yeah, I'm saying the things that I would say. Okay.
Yeah.
And it doesn't, I don't know.
Makes sense.
I'm like, that's about it. It's not interesting.
Yeah.
'Cause I already said it. That was the thing that I said because that's the thought I had. Because those are the thoughts that I have.
100%. Yeah, I think you have to get over it when you're making like technique videos or whatever. But I think the worst thing is like making yourself go back and watch like a competition you lost or something. It's like
Those can be unfun.
this is
Yeah.
for sure harsh.
Well, because you go back and look at the competition like you were the coach, right? You're outside of it all of a sudden.
Yeah.
And so it's so obvious, right? Put your elbow back in there, or, frame, you idiot, frame.
A year later,
Right.
even if you haven't been watching it, studying it, and like trying to figure out what to do, but like a year later, you know so much more jiu-jitsu that you're like, I can't believe I did that in public
Yeah.
Right.
in front of a camera.
Right.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, the public part,
Yep.
the public part's rough. And actually, there's a piece where you've got significantly more experience than either of us, is competing under the big lights.
Yeah, it's always nice when open flow grappling, and they got that clip. I went against Sam Nagai like a couple months ago, and he's been doing all these events. You know how flow grappling will kind of repost a clip. There's this one of me going against him, and he did very well against me. He got an Ezekiel in like 45 seconds. But you just see that sequence just like up on flow grappling. I'm just like whatever. Scroll Facebook, scroll Instagram. And I'm like, all right, yep, okay.
There's
Yep,
that thing
That was the
again.
thing. Yep. And I'm like, okay. All right. Nope, just keep posting it. It's cool. But
Someone has to get choked.
I think that adjective is like I dubbed it flow grappling. Like sometimes you go to Pans or Worlds, whatever, you lose by an advantage. You have a conversation about the match. Like you almost have to have that individual conversation with everybody, or you just make a post about it or whatever. But like when you just get smoked and then flow grappling posts it, like you don't even have to.
It was like
You don't have to say anything.
in football, if they're running to the end zone, like the defenders will like back off, or like in basketball, if they're going up for the big dunk, like sometimes they won't really defend it because they don't want to get posterized. They don't want their face down there in the bottom like this with the guys crouching their face while the other guy's jamming on them on all the posters that go out the next year. So they're like, he got the slam dunk.
I guess in the clip we're talking about, I was trying to avoid that, but he wouldn't let me avoid that.
You got posterized?
Yeah, a little bit.
So, I mean, having had something fairly embarrassing happen from a competition, right, like on the big stage, posted out to the internet, are you ever going to compete again?
Are you quitting jiu-jitsu now?
Did it break your spirit?
No. I mean, so fortunately enough, so it was kind of a weird time for the match itself. So I had a Fight to Win Pro back in March. So like the second week of March, right before we were going to go out for Pans and everything. And that's what kind of got me the title shot. And then, pandemic, whatever, blah, 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 blah. And it was really nice because I was able to go out to Lovato's and train for 2 weeks before that match, which was obviously great training. But prior to that, obviously, I had not gotten as much training as I would like. I think like most people. So then I go to Lovato's, I go down to Dallas and have that match. It doesn't go my way. And actually, really recently, prior to that, Lovato had his match with Lucas Barbosa. And that was kind of his big comeback to the gi. That didn't go his way either. And he's there that night. We're all going out and hanging out because Shanji had also competed that same night that I lost. So we're all hanging out, and Lovato was like, man, I got to get back out there. Like, I'm going to do this, try to do this Fight to Win, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, all right, cool. I got to do the same thing, So then I actually did another
Get
Fight
right
to
back
Win.
on the horse.
Yeah, I did another Fight to Win Pro. It was like 4 or 5 weeks after that. And then I've been trying to get back on another card since then. He's been obviously having to move around and do all this stuff with the promotion and everything. But so that was I definitely could have and maybe was trending towards like, oh, this sucks. Like I'm gonna go feel bad about it for a while. And then like just seeing Lovato there and him being like, all right, I gotta go get over that by.
He's really good at using that. things that go wrong, like on the word, to drive him to get better. He's really good at that.
Yeah, there's
using it for
I think it's
fuel.
from Think and Grow Richer. There was this quote that I heard him say. It was like, "Adversary is the seed of every opportunity." I'm probably missing it a little bit, but it
Like
was
the
something
obstacle
like
is
that.
the way or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So kind of hanging out with him after that, being like, all right, I gotta just go do that. So that was back in June. And like I mean, everything is kind of lessons learned, strong lesson learned. I'm definitely not driving out to Texas again. Oh my goodness, that was rough. So I'd gone to Oklahoma to train, and I thought it made sense to drive to Oklahoma, drive to Texas, but that Dallas to Denver was not. That was not a good
13
experience.
hours.
Yeah, hit car trouble on the way, just big pain.
And
So,
then, from my understanding, cops outside of Colorado borders are a little cagey.
yeah, luckily I didn't have that experience.
The
but,
problem with driving to Dallas is then you're in Texas.
yeah,
You're surrounded by Texas and
they're
Texas
everywhere. Oh yeah,
until you get out of the state. Like, and that's
yeah. But and especially with just the flights being so cheap like they are right now. So the one that I did Austin a couple weeks later, just flying in and out, man, that was much better. But
Austin's great, but surrounded by Texas.
still surrounded.
It's kind of like its
still
own.
surrounded
It's
by
kind of like
Texas.
its own country, its own thing in there.
Yeah,
So much Texas.
there's a lot of Texas down there.
It's like deep in there.
Don't care for it.
So, yeah,
I mean, if that's the price for competition, then I say we all quit.
It's like reverse whack-a-mole right now, right? Wherever the disease comes up, they got to go somewhere else to have the tournament.
Right. Yeah. And
So they're the mole that
Yeah.
whacks itself.
well, and honestly, trying to compete right now is a little like reverse whack-a-mole. Like, oh, there's the target. Nope, gone.
Nope.
Nope, that one. Nope, gone. Can't even get a shot off.
yeah.
Keep
Yeah.
trying.
But
Can definitely be like that. That is actually kind of one thing about Fight to Win that was good, because like the weigh-ins, obviously you're lined up, spaced out. You weigh in, you take off, like, and really in a way like you have contact with your opponent, obviously, because you're gonna grapple. But yeah, really, I mean, if you took the distancing seriously, you could compete at a Fight to Win and come in contact with your opponent, and obviously you got to fly, you got to travel, but fairly safe as far as
maybe
whatever
within
safe
6
is,
feet of
but-
the ref, depending.
And actually, the match that I had, I guess my match with Sam wasn't super long, and then the other match that I had in June, I basically just ended up getting the guy in the saddle, so I had him in the saddle for most of the match. So like, his head was pretty far away from mine, so I think there was no
It's
exposure
like
there.
nearly 6 feet of distance there.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, like a reverse figure four in his legs, his head's way over there.
Part of the legs and the torso and the neck on both sides.
So
Yeah, well,
you can do it safe.
if you're training jiu-jitsu, you're not that worried about it.
no, I think
Kind of
that's
by definition.
pretty universally true.
You've weighed your risks and made certain decisions if you're still training.
Yeah.
I mean, you should continually reevaluate and prioritize your health and your
Sure.
family and all those things.
Sure.
But
We've had almost a year now to like figure out the lay of the land, and
risk
How we're
will
go-
always exist.
yeah, you can't nerf the world.
Yeah, but yeah, and like if anything, that result, even against like Sam specifically, I didn't do good in that match, just competitive wise in terms of like staying in there for the whole time. But like knowing that I can't compete on that level, and then just seeing him go and then have success, it's like, all right, I'm at that level. Obviously, I gotta get my what together and make sure I can perform on the given night. So I think it's good having those experiences. If anything, just knowing you're capable of competing on that level, and
On that level in this year,
yeah, for sure, pretty wild year. But yeah, and it's like if you're going to be in the opportunity to get flow grappling, you're going to be in the opportunity to flow grappling somebody else. I could have easily just have won that match and had the other effect. So
Right.
can't get the reward without the risk a lot of times.
no risk it, no biscuit.
Yeah. So, in the near future, you're going to take all of your experience and all the stuff that you've gathered up over all this time and bring it into Denver. what are you looking forward to? What's going to be different Denver to Longmont, having cross-pollinated a little bit?
Yeah, for sure. So I was living in Broomfield, commuting downtown for work. I just recently moved downtown, which is really just great for the commute in terms of personal training. Right now, and it's obviously especially with COVID, it's a lot of kind of going around to people's houses, a gym, Dark Horse Denver for lessons, all that type of stuff. So just kind of figuring out where all that stuff is going to land. But yeah, just trying to kind of make downtown the hub. Just looking to get into as really, I think my medium to long term goals lie in like an online personal training service that I've been working on. Kind of having that independent income to where like if I can work remote and then you can then literally just train however much you want. I mean, you got to block out a couple hours to get the computer work done, but that can be done whenever, so I can get the, whatever, train at 6, train at noon, train at 6 type of thing going on, which would be super cool. That and just trying to get into like as kind of, I guess, boutique of a training environment that I can get into in Denver in terms of training people like for profit, like you guys have probably heard of like Studio 540 in California, where it's not necessarily affiliated. People kind of use it as a space to hold seminars and
I have
that type
not
of
heard of
stuff.
this.
It's pretty interesting. They have like I said, it's just specifically unaffiliated gym. But my intent would have like I said, it wouldn't necessarily be like whatever jiu-jitsu. It would kind of just be like a space. Obviously, have personal training there. And especially with COVID, I feel like there's a lot of people that are going to want to focus on A, obviously just private training, and B, just like higher income people that aren't going to want to even risk training with normal people, even without COVID, getting that crazy white belt or anything like that. They're just they feel their time is valuable enough that if they want to pay, upwards of $100 an hour for a private lesson, I would be glad to provide that service, that type of thing. So. Kind of looking more towards that, and then just kind of
how magnanimous of you.
Yeah, of course. If there's a need, I'll gladly fill that in. So that's kind of what I've got my eyes on. Hopefully, getting a space like downtown, and then I think I've done a pretty good job of just having as community of a mindset I can in terms of training. So, like I said, training when I can. That's kind of the interesting thing about teaching and instructing is like I really never want to have a group class that I'm tied to specifically for like a 6 p.m. like for the rest of my life, because that's the prime time for training jiu-jitsu, and I want to train more than I want to teach. You know what I mean? Like if you're leading the 6 p.m. class, yeah, you can try to jump in on the training, but like you've got to structure it yourself. You're thinking about what you're going to show. Like you're teaching that class. I kind of rather be the student in that time, and specifically for the evenings, that's got to be like the one time, like, okay, like this is, I don't have to worry about work, like I'm not structuring this at all, I'm just showing up, I'm training, so for sure keeping that time, just trying to train as much as I can in the mornings, like I said, kind of structuring it more around personal and private training for me, just so I can set my own schedule as much as possible and then train as much as I can. So
100% lifestyle.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
awesome.
And I think it honestly is kind of good for me in a way to not necessarily have too much of a hat in the game in terms of one specific gym, just to be able to then support everybody genuinely. Like there's less of a conflict of interest. If you're okay, this is I own this gym and I inherently and subconsciously, see other gyms as opponents and everything. Whereas, like, if you can just kind of come from an outside perspective, and like, I just want to like, I think there's so much more potential for jiu-jitsu in terms of where we're at right now. Like, it's only getting more popular. Like there's only going to be more people wanting to train jiu-jitsu. Like that's been what I've really been surprised by, probably the most, is like coming into the gyms or whatever gyms and still seeing a lot of new people signing up. Like people are like, you know what, I need to do something to get out of the house and be active. And
yeah. It's been a surprising year in that way.
An incredible, pleasant surprise.
Yeah.
And we are super, super thankful for all of the people that joined this year.
Have allowed us to keep the doors open.
Yeah. It's been pretty amazing.
Yeah. And I think it's kind of weird because like for me, I feel like my whole lifestyle, like I'm basically just relying on jiu-jitsu. Like the good personal training clients I've met came to me because they knew I knew a lot about jiu-jitsu, regardless of if whether we're doing personal training or jiu-jitsu lessons. That's basically just provided the entirety of my income. Knowing you and then being able to use the spaces that you own for training, and just the bubble of people I know. So it's like really it's provided for me like basically entirely. So thanks jiu-jitsu.
Jiu-jitsu's the best.
Right?
Any other good competition stories? I feel like we've touched on a couple, but I feel like
I mean,
there's a well of stories here.
yeah. Any frame of reference maybe like I don't know, a buzzword.
A buzzword.
All right, I'll pick a good one.
Yeah.
I've made pretty much every mistake you can make before a competition, and I really haven't made any of them more than once. I feel like I've missed weight.
Learned your lessons.
I've not brought my ID to the airport. I've forgot my belt. But like all of them once. I feel like.
Have you missed a flight?
I missed a flight.
Yeah.
Yep. I'll done all. Don't worry. One of my favorites. So I'm BJJ if you can't wear spats. And I passed the gi check.
I feel like that's an excellent rule. But anyways, go ahead.
I'm neutral towards the rule, but I passed gi check. I'm like 30 seconds into my first match, and the ref, hey, stop! You gotta change. And I'm like, oh snap! This is what I brought to the arena. Like, so Shanji's coaching me. Shanji's like, just throw in your underwear, and I go to grab my bag. And he kind of just directs me. Like, if you guys are familiar with Worlds, there's like the stand and there's kind of like the warm up area underneath. Still a fairly public area. And he's like, go ahead and change. And then I'm like, all right. So I'm just, I'm balls out in the arena. And then like Shanji's just kind of standing there, like kind of watching out. And I'm like, all right, Shanji's there. I'm doing this. So I change in my underwear. I go up the match. And this is the worst part. I'm realizing as like literally I just start walking back towards the mat. I'm realizing I left my spats there that I warmed up in. I realized Shanji had grabbed them and he's holding them in his hand. I'm like, man, Shanji's holding my kind of sweaty spats. Like, all right. And then I get submitted like 30 seconds later off the reset. I feel like I was probably too slow off the reset. The guy like beats my guard on the side and I don't frame in time and my chest ends up coming forward. Anyway, I then try to turtle. The guy takes my back and chokes me. And then like, I'm just like, damn, like Shanji was holding my sweaty spats for nothing. Like it'd be one thing if I won, and then he'd kind of, okay, part of the process. But like, just got tapped like 30 seconds later and I'm like, damn. So don't wear. I literally have not bought a pair of spats since. I've just been like, I'm just never going to buy a pair, and then this will never be an issue. I don't even own any spats, so
life's better without spats.
Never going to happen again. Never going to happen again. So yeah, got a few like that.
There you go. Yeah.
Actually, probably this is a very good story I have. So there's even some sub stories in it. So 2013, same year, I'm out at Worlds. Me and Todd's kind of leading our excursion.
Yeah.
We get to this training gym that I think Shanji was at teaching some gym in LA at the time. So we finally get there, and then Shanji said something to Todd about it being like Dark Horse style, that like we're late or something. So we finally train and everything, and like so here's this interaction. I'm here. Me and this guy are gonna train. This guy's like, I'm gonna use the bathroom real quick. Shanji's maybe standing like 10 or 12 feet away. He looks and points at me. I probably take about 3 seconds to look over my shoulder. I'm like, all right, this guy's not coming back. I go and train with Shanji. Like, it was awesome to meet him for the first time. We have a good role and everything. It seemed like an extremely positive interaction. And then later we're out in California, and this was, I guess that's 2013. And Matt, who was out there with us, just comes up to me later on, and he's like, why didn't you want to roll with Shanji? Like, he's like a pretty, like, just even keel guy. He's not really up or down, and he was like a little heated, and I'm like, dude, I totally rolled with Shanji. It was great. Like, what are you talking about? So Shanji had like grilled him on me, like even having that small hesitation to roll with him.
And by hesitation, you mean looking in a different direction and not be looking at Shanji in that moment.
I realized I should have had literally zero regard for my opponent, even if he was sitting right there and Shanji points to me. Next time, I'm just, oh hey, like I'm not even looking back at this guy next time. So like 2015 or 16, he's at Matt's place for a seminar, and I think I had said what's up. I greeted him initially. You know, he knew I was there, and he's just like, you know, he's kind of going on in the seminar, yada yada. He's like, "What do you think, guy that didn't want to roll with me?" And just looks over at me, and everybody that knew the story is like, "Oh," and I'm just like, "Oh." It was like 3 years later. That's what he knew me as. I mean, I think I know he knows my name, but like. I was like, man, he was
forever planted in his brain as the guy that didn't
that
want
was
to roll with him.
that was his first impression. So I'm like, all right, that's fair.
Bummer.
That's fair. But like 3 years later, just comes back, and I'm like, oh man, he did not forget about that.
Speaking of embarrassing stories with legends, when I lived in Brazil, Brandon and I went to Belo Horizonte to train at Draculino's school before he moved to America. And I got to train with Homolo. I got to train with like all the guys down there. It was really good training. But I got to roll with Homolo, and he front choked me, and it was on my face. It wasn't on my neck. And I used to fight chokes really, really, really hard. But he squeezed my face so hard that I sneezed directly into his face.
Yes.
There was no warning. Like I didn't feel it coming. It was just sneezed directly into his face, and he like stops, and he's like clearly pretty upset. And I apologize profusely, and he took a moment, and then he like went back to kicking my ass.
Right, yeah. Probably cross choke.
So I'm sure in his head, I'm that sneezed in my face guy.
Yeah, that guy that fucking sneezed on me that one time.
He was like front choking me, so it was like my face was like right there.
Yeah. There's been some good ones. Probably one of my favorites, going back to Kiefer. One time, he like thought that Guillermo Mendez was coaching his opponent, so he goes to shake his hand after the match, realizes it's the guy next to him, and leaves him hanging so hard. You can see it in the footage where he's like, he like walks up, and like that's Guillermo, and he just gets that hanging, and you even see Guillermo kind of looking at him like, this guy just freaking like, just cuts him off super hard. Actually, same year, Kiefer goes to wake Matt up because he's whatever blue belt lightweight 9 a.m. He goes to wake Matt up, like knock on his door. Shanji had gone to stay with him last minute, so this is Kiefer's first interaction with Shanji. Like 9 a.m., Shanji opens the door and he's like, "Oh, good morning, Shanji." Is Matt like he had to just like go wake him up and Shanji was there, and I was like, oh man, you that's almost as bad as me.
At least he didn't sneeze in his face.
At least, yeah, it doesn't get much worse than that. So yeah, some good stories. I guess got some other good ones, but I can't empty the vault right away.
Right.
Don't want to give up all your secrets. See how it is.
So, but I think one of the big takeaways, right, and one of the things that I think our audience should really glean from all this is like there's adventures to be had, right? Maybe everything doesn't go smoothly, but it's an adventure, and jiu-jitsu does open up a lot of doors and opportunities.
That's the point
for
of
all
adventure.
kinds of fun things.
Yeah.
Is not going to go smoothly.
Yeah, I mean. And I think maybe people don't realize that it's such a small sport that, like, you're not going to go compete at some amateur level football thing and see, like, Tom Brady walking around and be like, what's up, Tom? But, like, if you go to Pans or Worlds, like, you're going to see all those guys walking around. You're going to be like, man, is that guy looks bigger than I thought? Or, what? Like, it is so accessible, Like, to pay for a private lesson with some of these guys is probably astronomically expensive. But even just to walk up a World and be like, hey, man, you're super cool. I mean, maybe not right now, but...
It's small enough that they're not super rich, and they're pretty accessible. Like, they're pretty friendly in general. As a general, I'm not all of them all the time or whatever. But, like, they're not. Yeah. They're just human beings.
Yeah, exactly.
At the end of the day.
Most of them are human beings, like, with academies that have phone numbers. Like, the very definition of accessible people.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wonder... Actually, what's kind of funny, our buddy Witt that opened a gym, his obviously I think like most business owners, he just made his personal number kind of the gym number. So it kind of went from me calling him on his phone, and then it became kind of like the business line. So now obviously I still know it's his cell phone, so I'll leave whatever kind of message I want. It's like it's always interesting. You're like, oh well, hey, Coach Witt. It's interesting.
I am not actually interested in an intro lesson, but
thank you very much.
I do like jiu-jitsu, but
Had something else in mind for today.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
All right. Well, let's wrap this up.
So yeah, we got Coach Cobra coming to Denver for a repeat long-term engagement.
Yes.
6 a.m. Tuesday, Thursday.
Yeah,
Is that the
Tuesday,
word?
Thursday.
That is the
And
word.
We're thinking about working on a noon class or noon classes. So make sure to check those out.
Yep. Details to come.
Right? Come say hi to some very accessible people.
Here we are.
Real human beings.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. Don't have to wait for the tournament or anything.
So while we're on the spot, can I just ask, what is my curriculum? Am I following is this all levels that I'm doing? Is this a fundamentals? Is it
Yeah, all levels. Yeah.
is it see who shows up and
Yeah.
kind of go from there?
I've been, for all levels classes, I've been using the fundamental curriculum as the base.
Okay.
But then, like, if it's a bunch of whatever green and blue belts, then I'll change it up.
Awesome. Good to know.
But if
Good
it's
to know.
someone on their first day, like going over worm guard might be a little.
For sure.
You got good jiu-jitsu that people need to know.
No knee slice of death on the first day. But it is Dirty December.
It is,
So
for sure.
the possibilities are really endless.
Yeah.
So
All right.
they'll just have to show up and find out.
That is the ticket. All right.
Yes.
Thank you all for tuning in. Like, subscribe, comment, do all those YouTube things.
Thanks to LaCroix.
If you want to sponsor us, we're here.
I wouldn't be mad about it.
All right.